Good morning, everyone. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Mohammed Kashan Khan, and it is my pleasure to moderate today's panel discussion. Thank you all for actually joining us for what I believe is a very important and very relevant, timely conversation nowadays, right? So, the topic of today's panel discussion is AI in the information technology classroom, ally or enemy, exploring the impact of artificial intelligence and information technology education. As we all know that artificial intelligence is rapidly changing how we teach, learn, and assess students. From personalized learning to AI-powered tools for lesson planning and coding, AI is becoming part of the education. However, it also raises important concerns about academic integrity, ethics, and data privacy, and the role of the teachers as well, right? So today's discussion is not about replacing educators, but about using AI responsibly to enhance teaching and learning. What we'll do today, we'll explore how AI can support critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, personalization, and meaningful teacher-student relationships. Through different perspective, we aim to identify practical, ethical, and pedagogically sound ways to use AI to improve student learning. I'm delighted to be joined by four distinguished panelists, each bringing valuable expertise and a unique perspective to today's conversation. So, before we begin, let me briefly introduce our panelists and highlight the perspective they bring to today's discussion. Our first panelist is Dr. Joseph Nitikadan, Chief Information Technology Officer at ESOL Education. Dr. Joseph holds a doctorate in education from Rosier School of Education, University of Southern California, and a master's degree in information technology from Northwestern University, and brings extensive experience in educational technology, digital transformation, and IT leadership. His expertise will help us understand the strategic role of artificial intelligence in a school, including innovation, technology implementation, security, and ensuring that emerging technologies supports meaningful teaching and learning outcomes. Welcome, Dr. Joseph. Our second panelist is Dr. Andrew Torres, a school director at American International School in Abu Dhabi. Dr. Andrew brings valuable experience in educational leadership, school vision, and strategic planning. His perspective will help us explore how school leaders can guide responsible AI adoption, develop effective policies, support teachers through professional learning, and ensure that technology integration remains aligned with the school mission and commitment to high quality teaching and learning. Welcome, Dr. Andrew. Our third panelist is Syed Kaisar Hussain, Assistant Professor and Program Manager for the Languages Program at Zabis University, Karachi, Pakistan, with experience in higher education, teaching, and academic program management. Syed Kaisar brings an important perspective on how artificial intelligence is influencing university learning and student expectation. His insight will help us understand how schools can prepare students with AI literacy, critical thinking, and ethical skills for future academic professional success. Welcome, Mr. Kasser. Our fourth panelist is Ms. Amira Al Turabi, Instructional Coordinator and Coach at American International School in Abu Dhabi. Ms. Amira works closely with educators to strengthen teaching practices, curriculum design, and effective technology integration. Her instructional perspective will help us explore how AI can enhance student engagement, support personalized learning, and improve assessment practices. Creativity and meaningful teacher-student relationship remain at the center of the education. I welcome you, Ms. Amira. So, I really want to start my discussion. To begin our discussion, I would like to start with a very, very fundamental question that artificial intelligence has created both excitement and concern in education, right? So, some see it as a powerful tool that can transform learning, while others worry about its impact on teaching, creativity, and academic integrity. So, Dr. Joseph, my first question to you is, from your perspective as a technology leader, what role should AI play in information technology classrooms? And do you believe AI is ultimately an ally or an enemy?
Oh, good morning, good evening, everybody, to everyone that's joining all over. Thank you, Kashan, for that introduction, and really pleasure to be here with all these fellow panelists. I'm really looking forward to an engaging discussion and hopefully learning from all of you as more than anything else. So, thank you for the opportunity, Kashan, first of all, and nice to see everyone, all fellow panelists again, once again. Um, I mean, this topic could not be more relevant, given the times that we're in today. And as we all, given where we are, especially where we work, heading back to our school environments and, K through 12 and educational environments, I think this is a big question that you have posed, and hopefully it'll be a great topic of discussion. Given my sort of background and expertise, I come from I wanted to just sort of put that out there. I come from more of a technologist view, and by nature, I'm much more of a glass half full person, or more of an optimistic view of anything, just from that technology perspective. Having said that, I think AI in the classroom today can help both the core stakeholders in the classroom, mainly the students and teachers, right? Where I see the real benefit for the teacher is, saving time on most of the operational activities, or the so-called the administrative tasks that the teachers have to perform. Hopefully, like automating a lot of lesson planning, grading tasks, and pointing to resources, and wherever the things AI can play a lead role in terms of saving time. So this time can go back into effective engagement with the students. For students, I think it gives the opportunity to really have a tutor, probably like a hyper personalized tutor, if you will, 24 by 7. So even if the teacher is not there, the conversation or the engagement for the students can keep continuing around the clock, in a sense that makes sense to them. So to me, that is where I see the strong potential right now. Uh, from the other side, from more of a downside of things, I think there is a dependency on a tool, and how much of it can it really engage, sort of leverage the critical thinking and the other sort of higher skills of students, that has to be monitored and guided, I suppose. So I'll leave that as an opening statement from my side and answer to your question. Thank you, Kashan.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joseph. And that is really very interesting perspective of you as well, right? That AI being a tool rather than a replacement is very, very important. And in information technology education, a student need to learn not only to use technology, right, but also how to evaluate questions and apply it responsibly as well, right? So the real value of AI comes when it enhances human creativity, problem solving, and learning too, right? So building on this idea, right, of responsible implementation, what I feel is that I would now like to move from the technology perspective to the leadership perspective, right? And we all know that successful technology adoption in a school requires more than just having access to the tools, right? So it requires vision, policies, teacher support, and a clear understanding of educational goals, right? So my next question to you, Dr. Andrew, right, that from a school leadership perspective, how can leaders support the integration of AI while preserving high quality teaching, learning, and the school educational vision, right?
Yeah, thank you, Kashan. I've been spending a lot of time these last several weeks reflecting during my summer holiday, doing some reading and research on this. So I appreciated the invitation to come and have a conversation about this today. Um, I think that for me, as a school leader, we have to approach this first, not technologically, but definitionally. We need to clearly provide the guidelines, the guardrails, the boxes, the policy, so that we can define what this tool is potentially for. What can we use it? How can we use it? But most importantly, what it is for our schools. And I think if, like anything else, change in schools is best managed if anchored directly toward the vision of the organization itself.
Hmm.
Um, the vision and the direction of the organization, but also that definition of what high quality learning is, so that we can, establish our priorities and commit to particular initiatives that are either direct toward the key goals of the school, or which are parallel but supportive of the missions of the organizations themselves. The second part of it is, and I think this is the most important part, is we need to decide and define what we want to protect
Mm.
and
True.
to enhance as we move through. I'll give you a couple examples. I've been reading some very great work, again, just continuing on recently around the ideas of productive struggle, making sure that we're giving our students multiple, frequent opportunities for original thinking, um, debate, uh, discourse, argumentation, establishing new ideas, creativity, critical thinking. Those two things to me are the keys for really helping us to push this thing that is, in Joseph's exact words, and I appreciate, and it's like this amazingly powerful tool where it can provide all these things, but we need to clearly define that this is what this is for. Now here's the problem, and this is the one that I guess we can talk about as we kind of move through this conversation is I think we're continuing every day to understand what this amazing tool can bring. I don't think we perhaps can see the full horizon line for this particular opportunity for changing the way we provide learning to students. Those of you in this room who have been around me have heard me talk passionately about the idea of personalized learning. Um, and I don't think we really understand how this can truly make a difference for personalized learning for our students right now.
True. Yeah, so I think Dr. Andrew, thank you very much. And actually, what your response highlights that this AI implementation is not actually only a technology decision, right? It is, but also an educational leadership decision as well, right? And a school needs some sort of clear direction as well, right, for that. So now that we have explored the leadership perspective, so let's move closer to the classroom and examine the how AI can influence daily teaching and learning practices, right? And what we do when we talk about AI in education, one of the most very important thing question is how it impacts the learning experiences of students and the role of the teachers, right? So my next question is to you, Miss Amira, right? That from an instructional perspective, how can AI be integrated into teaching and learning to enhance student engagement? As Dr. Andy said that about this personalized learning structure and strengthen teaching practices while maintaining sound pedagogical principles too. Over to you,
Thank
Samira.
you. So again, I just want to reiterate, thank you very much for inviting me to this very rich discussion around a topic that, yes, is absolutely at the forefront of many educators' minds at the moment. I don't just think educators, I think all industries at the moment. From the teaching and learning perspective, I think that it's just as with any teaching and learning tool, we
Mhm.
need to be very clear that this is a tool. It does not, as Dr. Joseph mentioned as well, this does not, and as you mentioned, it doesn't replace education. It doesn't replace educators. Um, and so it's very, very important that we start with the pedagogy side of things before anything else, that we start with the fundamentals of teaching and learning, and that is the learning outcome. What do we want the student to be able to know, do, understand by the time that they walk out of that door, by the time they walk out of the door at graduation? What do we want them to have? What skills do we want them to have? And how can this support us to facilitate that? And I think, there was, to begin with, I think there was probably a lot of fear around AI and the fact that, oh, well, it's replacing people, it's replacing teachers, but that's not the case at all, because regardless of how it's used, be it, to increase engagement, be it to, create assessment, any of those things, the teacher's role is incredibly important there, because it is as I said, a tool. And so I'm going to start with sort of you asked about, how can it be used to enhance student engagement? Of course, you've got a plethora of AI tools that can now be used to make learning more interactive and more responsive. We no longer have to sit and look through textbooks of what life was like in the early 20th century, for example. We can create a simulation. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but there's an actual Albert Einstein simulator in which it's an AI recreation of Albert Einstein himself, and students can interact with him and ask him questions. And of course, it's a language model, so it sticks very closely to what it knows. And because that's the other area, of course, that we've got to be mindful of is sort of the safety element. And that's why that teacher is very important. Their selection of those engagement tools is very important. But using these kinds of tools are going to stimulate dialogue. Dr. Joseph mentioned the idea of the AI tutor, and I think that's really, really, really pertinent. Studies show that students are more likely to persist when the feedback that they get is instant. They're not having to sit and wait a week for a teacher to give them that feedback, or even sit and wait in a lesson. One teacher, often 20 to 30 students in a classroom, student has a hand up waiting for feedback. That can, it can slow down the pace. Having a AI tutor that provides that instant feedback is invaluable. But again, how the teacher utilizes that is very important. We have to be really careful that we are using AI that supports rather than just gives the answer. And there are lots of very, very good examples of programs that will prompt students towards the right answer rather than giving them the right answer. Moving on to looking at the kind of the idea of personalization, and I kind of just touched on this idea that one teacher, multiple students. This is really where AI shines, that personalized learning. And I don't think we're quite at the point yet where the personalized learning is at its peak, but we are definitely moving in the right direction towards that. But just the very notion that students can work adaptively at their own level, because as you well know, in any given classroom, you have got very, very different students, regardless of whether those cohorts are leveled, whether they are set in high, medium, low. Within those own groups, you have got students of varying interests, varying abilities, varying needs. So having that adaptable or adaptive learning program there to support them and give them different levels of complexity, give them the different targeted scaffolds that they might need, help them to revisit any concepts that they might need, again, is something that is an area where AI shines, but it still needs that teacher oversight, because even ChatGPT at the bottom will tell you ChatGPT is an AI model and it can make mistakes. And so that human element of the actual teacher to prevent any or to provide judgment for anywhere that there could be any superficial misunderstanding or anything that's misleading is really important. And then finally, and I think this is, again, Dr. Joseph sort of talked about this, the time-saving element of planning. AI can be used as a kind of a co-planner for teachers. It takes that sting out of having to. I remember back when I was in my early days, many, many moons ago, as a young teacher, I spent hours writing out lesson plans. And so, having a tool that is there to support teachers to generate accurate planning is really important. But again, it needs judgment for that teacher to think, does this fit the students that are in front of me, is it accurate? Is it culturally sensitive? Is it pedagogically sound? So I think it's not there to dilute rigor. It's not there to replace thinking. It's there to extend access. It's there to support teachers, and it's there to support students.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's very insightful as well. And actually, what your perspective reminds us that the effective technology integration always, this is what you said in the start as well, that always begin with the pedagogy, right? Not the tool itself, right? And AI can always provide new opportunities for differentiation, feedback, and personalized learning too, right? But the teacher remains central, creating meaningful learning experience. And the goal is not to replace the teachers, but to empower them, right? That's the eventual goal is, right? So now, what we have done until now, we have discussed the role of AI from technology leadership, school leadership, and the instructional perspective as well. And I would now like to bring in the higher education perspective as well and explore how AI is preparing students for their future, right? So as we prepare our student for an increasingly AI-driven world, well, it is important to understand that how expectations are changing beyond school and into the higher education, right? And my next question, my fourth question is to you, Mr. Kasser, right? Sayed Kasser, from your experience in university education, how is artificial intelligence changing the way students learn, and what can a school do to better prepare learners for higher education in an AI driven world? Over to you.
Thank you so much, first of all, Kashan, for inviting me and making me a part of this such an academically rigorous discussion. And it's a very crucial question because most important things that are being, it's probably the dot com of the day. That's all I can say. So, from a higher education perspective, the most important change AI is bringing to learning is that students now have access to personalized and on-demand academic support. That's what one of my speakers also mentioned this. So a student can ask AI to explain a difficult concept, give another example, provide feedback on their writing, challenge an argument, and or approach a problem from a completely different perspective. And this is not simply an observation from my own experience. We now have some fairly strong research evidences on this. So for example, if I may quote a 2025 meta-analysis published in the Journal of Educational Computing Research. It examined 49 students studies and found positive effects of generative AI on both learning achievement and student motivation. Because sometimes, see, my I'm about to be a PhD, and my research area is speaking anxiety. So anxiety is something which makes a student more nervous, and student gets he gets into a difficult situation in asking questions from the teachers or sometimes even from the peers. So this is something which is very important. So similarly, a very systematic review and a meta-analysis published in Computers and Education examined experimental studies on chat gpt specifically, and which was the pioneer, if I'm not wrong, if from in the AI chatbots, and found improvements in academic performance, motivation, and higher order thinking. So critical thinking is something which it is being utilized by the students in order to give the prompts. Now we have prompt engineering, because if you do not give the right prompts to any AI chatbot, you would not get the right answer. So at least thinking as well of what to ask the AI chatbot, or what to ask, what question should be coined. So thinking about the right question is also, it ignites your thinking, your cognitive ability and critical thinking skills. So I don't think the research supports the idea that schools should simply say AI is dangerous, so let's keep it out of the education. This is not possible now, because it's already there. But there is an important qualification here, and the qualification is, if I may say, that AI, it is it is used very enormously. So there was a very interesting, a randomized controlled trial published in Scientific Reports in 2025. I just read that. So researchers compared an AI tutor with active learning instruction among university students, and this is a very interesting study. So the students using the AI tutor achieved substantially greater learning gains, and did so in less time. That is also a very important element. But the important point is that this wasn't simply a chatbot giving students the answers. The AI tutor was deliberately designed around sound pedagogical principles, scaffolding, feedback, active learning, self-paced learning, and all that things, those things. So for me, the lesson from schools is very clear. We shouldn't just teach students how to use AI. We need to teach them how to learn with AI, how to grow with AI, how to use it more effectively. So I would focus specifically on three things. So the first one is AI literacy. Students need to understand that AI can hallucinate, reproduce biases, provide inaccurate information, and raise questions about privacy and intellectual property. Just to give you a very brief example of the hallucination. So one day, it just occurred to me, and I asked this question to her that I am in heaven, I have died, I am in heaven, and I don't have any friends around me. The friends that I used to have on earth, I don't have those friends around me. So how can I have fun? And you would not believe it started giving me answers. It started giving me ideas of how to have fun in heaven. Anyways, moving on. So second, verification. Students should develop this habit of asking, what is the evidence for this? And they must, cross check. Can I verify it? What might I have missed something? So it can be this all these researches that are being quoted, they need to be cross-checked. And third, independent thinking, extremely important and very crucial for any individual. I would encourage students to think first and then use AI to challenge or improve their thinking, not to replace the thinking process. As madam said, that AI can only be a facilitator for a teacher, not a teacher itself. And I think this also means that our assessment practices have to evolve. We need to assess reasoning, problem solving, application, discussion, and reflection, not simply the production of a polished piece of writing. So ultimately, I don't think the question is whether students should use AI or not. The question is whether we can educate students well enough to use it intelligently. Our goal should not be to produce students who can compete with AI, but our goal should be to produce students who know how to think, question, and learn in partnership with AI. So
Hmm.
there was a very beautiful line that I read somewhere, and I would like to quote here, that we shouldn't just teach students how to use AI. We need to teach them how to learn with AI. That's what I incorporated in my answer. I hope I've answered this question.
No, yeah, thank you very much, actually. And you what you have highlighted is that preparing students for the future is not only about teaching them how to use AI, right, tool, but also developing their ability to think critically,
Absolutely.
independently, and making ethical decisions as well, right? That is also very, very important, right, to know, right? So now moving from preparing students for the future, right, and I would now like to explore one of the biggest challenges educators are currently facing, right? And that how we assess learning in an AI enabled environment too, right? So that, and we all know that artificial intelligence has changed the way students assess information, right? We spoke about it a lot right now, right? And that creating content and demonstrating their learning as well, right? So this has encouraged educators to rethink traditional assessment approaches and focus more on authentic learning experiences, right? So my next question is to Miss Amira, right? That as an instructional leader, how can educator design authentic and meaningful assessment that promote critical thinking, creativity, problem solving, and academic integrity in an AI-enabled classroom? Yes, Miss Amira. Sure.
Apologies, my technology is struggling this morning. There we go. So I'm sorry. Could you repeat the last part of your question for me?
Sure. So my question was that as an instruction leader, how can educators design authentic and meaningful assessment that promote critical thinking, its creativity, and problem solving and academic integrity in an AI-enabled classroom?
Sure. So I think really with assessment, this is really where the mind shift, or where we kind of need to shift our mindset. And I completely concur with everything that Said as I said previously about how we need to promote thinking. My view on this is if AI can complete the task, then it's probably not a good assessment. Why do I say that? You should be able to hear the student voice. It should be very clear to you as a teacher, you know your students, you know their writing styles, you know their speaking styles, you've supported them, you've read through work. You should be able to hear them. You should be giving them opportunities throughout the year to develop that voice so that you can hear it through their work. And so if you are providing them with tasks that that don't allow that voice, that thinking, that critical thinking, that opinion, that personal view, regardless of what the task is, then there's probably an issue with the assessment. Design tasks require students to think, not just produce. That's how they should be. We're not necessarily, at least now with modern education, we're not just checking for output anymore. We're not just, well, what, can you regurgitate? Can you recall facts? We know, can students think? And this is why, in math, we're asking students to show us you're working so that I can see what's happening inside of your brain as you are processing to get me the answer. And oftentimes you can get marks for the thinking, even if the answer is not correct. And so that means having students apply knowledge, make decisions, justify ideas, reflect on the process. Can they defend their choices? Because that's where the authenticity comes from. And having them defend their choices, having them justify their ideas, you should be able to hear student voice. When we bring AI into assessment, I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but again, we're using it as a tool. And one of the ways that I encourage teachers to use AI to support them with assessment is to incorporate it very, very sincerely into the task itself. So having students critique AI, for example, providing them with an AI generated response and having them critique it, having them break down, well, how did AI figure this one out so that I can understand their thinking? Using it in that way. And that helps us to turn AI from a shortcut, for want of a better word, into an actual learning tool. And then finally, when we're looking at academic integrity, I think, as was mentioned previously, I don't think that we can just say, oh, well, you can't use AI at all. I don't think we should be policing necessarily. I think we're well past that point. I have learned over the many, many years that students are very resourceful when they want to be, with regards to using things, and especially if you tell them they can't do something, it just ignites that desire to want to do it more. So I think it has to be, we have to approach this from an education standpoint, and that is to educate students on how to use AI appropriately, how to use it ethically, and to empower them to understand that their thinking is more important than what AI produces. When you give confidence to students or allow them to have that confidence in themselves, actually, I probably know more about this subject than AI does. That's going to, help them to be able to, along with the conversations about academic integrity, to be honest, to be ethical about what they are producing. Because, ultimately, our goal is not to outsmart AI, or to outsmart students for that matter. I think it's to make that student thinking visible. And that's something that AI cannot replace.
Yeah, absolutely correct. And thank you, Mr. Mia, for this particular insight as well. That right, that for example, that assessment should focus not only on the final outcome, right, but also on the thinking process and creativity and student skills too, right? So now what we have done, we have explored how AI can support teaching and assessment, however, with these opportunities come important responsibilities, right, around ethical implementation, right? Policies and preparing our school communities for responsible AI as well. Now, my next question is to Dr. Andrew, right? That from a school leadership perspective, right? What policies, governance, structure, and professional learning opportunities should a school establish to ensure AI is implemented ethically, responsibly, and effectively as well?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Thanks for that easy question, Kashan. Um, you know, I have to take a little step back from this and propose a little bit of a provocative question for us to consider. And I've been hearing a lot about the role of AI and how we can use it and what students should and should not be doing. There's a lot of conjecture around, whether we as human beings can know as much as these machines can. We cannot, by the way.
Mm,
There is no way we can outcompete these machines now. The idea of general intelligence, artificial general intelligence is not far off, if not already here. And so, one has to ask in conversations like this around assessment and instruction and the direction of education is maybe we need to rethink of what exactly we are teaching
mm,
in general. So, to take a step back on your policy statement, I think this is an opportunity for educators around the world to reconsider what the purpose of education is.
mm,
And so, I'm going to go back to my first response around tying policy and practice to the direct visionary targets that you have established. Every school has a mission statement that's very aspirational, um, whether it be, compassionate leaders and, thinking about being, visionary leaders in the world. That those are very high level targets, and we might actually have a tool in front of us that will help us to actually get to that point if we use it correctly. And I think, in preparation for this conversation, I just puttered around on the internet a little bit. I used this old tool. It's called Google yesterday. I don't know if you've heard of it. And just kind of typed in a few ideas. 2 weeks ago, IBA put out a really good set of guidelines around the use of technology in our schools. And uh, a couple things kind of jumped out at me. I have my notes here. One was, around teaching AI as a curriculum, not just as rules, giving students some perspective on what this tool can do, where it comes from, how it develops its knowledge, how it continues to develop, how it's using each other now. I mean, there's so much learning that needs to be part of and parcel to helping our students to understand how these tools grow and learn. That's a first part. Second part I think is really important is, and going back to, talking about analytic base here, there's a lot of fear right now in the use of tech. And the IB clearly has come out and said, well, actually, there's a lot of really strong case study here for the use of tech and learning, and that it's at worst neutral
mm,
and at best positive in its effect if it is used in a constructive way that addresses the inhibitory controls that our students need to learn, i.e., executive functioning, work habits, critical thinking, problem solving. It's that those human interactions that I think are so important here. And I started when I started learning more about AI a couple of years ago, I found myself saying over again, this is an opportunity for us as school leaders to humanize our learning opportunities for our students rather than relying on the tool over and over again, which I saw education moving more and more toward. I can openly complain about a number of different platforms that are simply, you know, do this, we'll assess, you'll get a mark or a sticker or an award. Do the next thing, mark, sticker, award. No personalization. There's no human interaction. It's just one kid, one screen, talking to a wall. It's really unhealthy for our kids. We know that. And all it encourages is uh, multitasking, off-task behavior, bad learning habits, and so on. So we've got to protect against that. And again, so I guess to answer your question, Kashan, from a policy standpoint, define who you are. Define the purpose of education. What is what's the definition of effective learning look like in your organization?
Mm.
Use that as your foundation, and then seek to use the tool to allow the students to develop their human attributes.
True. Mm.
And I guess the last part, I guess this is really, really important to me is we really need to understand how we as educators need to define and get into our head how we can help our students understand that I don't have my phone anywhere near handy. If I'd hold it up here right now and go, these things, these devices, these machines are just not us.
Mm.
They're not a representation of us. It is simply, a tool. I read a very interesting article yesterday, and some author noted that human beings have been developing technological tools throughout our entire existence as a
Mm.
species, with the intent of making things easier for ourselves. The writing instrument was, created to communicate in a more effective way. So we can't fault our students nor ourselves for using AI to get things done in a quicker and more effective fashion, to give faster answers, more accurate answers. The question is, how is it making us better? How did the pencil make us better? How did the bicycle make us better? How did the automobile make us better? How did the airplane make us better? How did the personal computer make us better? And how can this make us better as a entity, a species, if you will, a human being, individual? And then move that forward and teach that as an opportunity for our students to learn and grow.
Mm. Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Henry. Actually, that is very interesting, right? That to know the whole structure, what you have just explained, right? And what we have discussed until now is that the importance of responsible implementation from a school perspective as well, right? So I would now like to move to learner perspective again and explore how we can just prepare a student to the AI use. And my next question actually to you, Mr. Kesser, right? That from your experience in higher education, how can a school help a student use AI ethically while developing independent thinking, academic integrity, and lifelong learning skills too, right? So over to you, Mr. Kasser.
Right. I think first we need to do is change the way we frame the conversation. If we talk about AI only as a cheating tool, we're missing the larger educational challenge. The real question, in my perspective, in my perception, is how do we teach students to remain intellectually responsible when a machine can produce an answer in seconds. See, so again, I would like to refer to one of the studies, and very interesting one. Research suggests that students themselves are looking for clearer guidance rather than simply an outright ban. So, a large study, it was published in the International Journal for Educational Integrity. There was a survey of more than 2,500 university students. And the researchers found that students generally distinguished between using AI for assistance and having AI produce an entire assignment. So they also found considerable support among students for universities and established clear policies about appropriate AI use. So I think institutions need to move from an AI prohibition model to an AI responsibility model. Students should be taught three very simple questions, in my opinion. First, am I allowed to use AI for this task? Second, can I verify what AI has given me? Third, and do I need to disclose that I have used AI? That is a very important question. So, in other words, permission, verification, and transparency. But there is another issue that concerns me even more, and that is independent thinking, which is very crucial, as I said in my earlier answer as well. So I'll refer back to another study which was published in Studies in Higher Education, and it examined the influence of AI text generators on critical thinking skills among postgraduate business students. So the researchers found that the strongest improvements were at the lower level of Bloom's taxonomy, while concerns remain, about reliability and accuracy and ethical use. But for me, that tells us something important. If AI makes it easier to remember, explain, and generate information, education has to place even greater emphasis on analysis, evaluation, and judging the information. This is what I can come up with. And I think we can actually turn AI into a tool for developing those very crucial skills. So researchers are increasingly looking at the students, critically evaluating AI generated academic work rather than simply asking AI to generate their work. So I think that's a very powerful educational approach. And instead of always asking a student, write an essay, write this task, we can sometimes say, here is an AI generated essay. Now find five weaknesses in it. Let's go the bottom up or the top down, whatever approach you want to call it, and check its sources. Let the student feel that now they are assessing AI. So that will be a great idea in my perception, in my opinion. And identify the unsupported claims, what claims AI supported and what you could not find. Tell me what you would change and explain why. So see, make the students challenge the AI, these AI tools, and make them feel empowered, rather more intellectual and intellectually equipped than these AI tools. So now AI is no longer replacing thinking. Obviously, the human brain is, in my opinion, is more equipped with ideas than AI, but still. So AI has become the object that students have to think critically about. And finally, this connects directly to lifelong learning as well. The technology will continue to change. The particular AI tool we are using today may not even be important 5 years from now. They'll be evolving, and they'll be becoming archaic, and new tools will be taking their place. But the ability to question, verify, adapt, learn, reflect, that will remain important, and that is irreplaceable for any human being and for any AI tool. So I would define academic integrity in specifically in the AI age slightly differently. So to me, academic integrity should not simply mean don't use AI. It should mean use it responsibly, and I've already defined what responsibility means. So then verify it carefully, acknowledge it honestly, and remain intellectually responsible for what you finally submit. So, and I think that is how we can prepare students not just for university but for a lifelong learning. Again, I mean, I'd like to end this answer with very small quote that academic integrity in the AI age cannot simply mean don't use AI. It has to mean remaining intellectually responsible for what you produce. I hope I've answered this question.
Yeah, no, yes, very true, and thank you very much, Mr. Kessler. That what your perspective highlights that the AI literacy is not only about knowing how to operate AI tools, right, but also understanding how to use them, as you said, responsibly and ethically, right. And a student needs to recognize that AI should support their learning process rather than replace their creativity, right, analysis and decision making. And developing these skills early will help students become responsible digital citizens and lifelong learners, as you mentioned, right? So now my next question is to Dr. Joseph that looking ahead, right? What emerging AI technologies or innovations do you believe will have the greatest impact on information technology education over the next 5 years? Let's talk about.
Okay, well, thank you, Kashan. But that again is another very, I guess 5 years is a long time given the way AI is evolving. I cannot even say what's going to happen in 5 years. I don't even know. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. I can say let's shorten the time frame to a year. But first of all, before I get into that, I want to say I resonate with what has been said and shared with all my fellow panelists, to the point where I see, from my personal view as a technologist, I see all of these things combining and coagulating and sort of, merging into lots of different things. I mean, to start off with, what is the end goal from a K through 12 system is to prepare for college, then the college prepares them for future careers and so on and so forth. I think that all of this is merging now into one simple statement saying we need to teach the students to learn for lifelong learning with the help of AI, and AI will be there as a tool no matter what. Just to sort of highlight that point, right now we're seeing the phones, and of course, I'm sure everybody has used to or been heard about these wearables, tracking your number of steps that you take and all that. So if you look at the human wearable devices, that's going to explode in the next short term. What I mean by short term is say 24 to 36 months or even less. You're going to have glasses, you're going to have jewelry, you're going to have all kinds of wearables that you can imagine that's on your body, that you can embed on your body. So think about all that data that all these wearables are capturing. Okay,
Yeah.
right now there is it's an interesting article that I read in New York Times where it's causing anxiety for people when they look at the metrics and the measures that being shared by these wearables. That, oh, you didn't sleep well, oh, you didn't eat well, oh, you didn't do that well. That's causing another layer of anxiety. So I think we're going into this anxiety driven kind of thing with all these. So the point I'm trying to highlight is there's this whole aspect, right? Data is the fundamental feed to AI.
Mm.
Okay. So are we giving a lot of data than we should is one question. I mean, like to a point where certain individuals or human capacity as it exists, just like we have different diverse learners, maybe not all data, I mean, that much data should be given to everybody. Not everybody can handle that kind of data, right? Like they get overwhelmed, just like any student gets overwhelmed before an examination, before anything. So if this is going to be the normal life, I think there has to be some policy, some guidance, or something around that, right? Like I think there has to be some bigger thinking around all these things.
Mm.
So just to come back to your question of what's going to be relevant, I think AI is going to be a helpful tool in a very at a very high level. I am very concerned as a technologist on the cybersecurity threats of AI, how AI can be misused. I am more concerned with the recent headlines that I'm seeing where AI is breaking barriers, going in and breaking into systems and things of that nature, which I am really concerned about that. Okay, as a technologist, because I'm hearing reports of your as Dr. Torres mentioned, the tools, where there. I mean, in terms of where things are now like the art, AGI and even a level beyond that, ASI, artificial superintelligence. So where these things won't even tell us what's going on. Right now, there is some kind of implication or responsibility that they are supposed to, and we have some tools to detect what they're doing. But I'm concerned when these things don't tell us, and are they making? I mean, when the intelligence supersedes the human level of thinking and collective human capacity, and then where do we stand and things like that. Again, like I said, a whole another probably topic of discussion, but in the short term, I'm more concerned about these kind of risks in the short term before we can actually get to the longer term benefits and wider aspects of AI. So I just wanted to kind of sort of end the conversation or my thoughts and my perspective there, uh, because 5 years is too long of a time frame to really see what's going to happen. But I think in the short term, we should be concerned with more of some of these technological risks that might pervade into our educational establishments.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, and I completely agree with you that this 5 year is a very long time, right? And I think this particular thingy which Dr. Joseph has explained, we were just talking about it 2 days back as well, right? That this is really very concerning, right? That how this the if when the AI is gonna start making their own decisions, so how the world is gonna look like, right in future. So yeah, thank you very much actually to share this with this particular panel discussion, right? And now what we have done, right? What we have actually explore AI from multiple perspective, right? Including technology leadership, classroom practices, and a student responsibility as well. And before I really want to move, if there is any sort of audience question, right? I really want to invite each panelist to share one final message with our audience. And I want to start with Dr. Torres to share his final thoughts on what advice would you give to leaders who are guiding their schools, specifically schools through AI transformation? So,
Thanks, Kashan. This has been fun. I guess I really would like to have, leave this conversation with the encouragement that we start rethinking the what education will be in the next 3 to 5 years. Um, I specifically, those of you who are going to be working with me this academic year, you're going to hear me prattle on for hours and hours upon the fact that if we don't teach these students how to dissect text, to be able to understand critically what is being put in front of them and understand what is being written, proposed, um, um, that they're being asked to believe. If they do not have those skills, they are going to be lost in this AI world.
hmm,
There's the capability of so much misinformation, so much redirected and reframed information that if our students are unable to dissect that and understand that we are building a society that is being easily led in very poor directions. And to Joseph's concern, and I think we should all have that, as these machines they can be the leaders and not the human beings if we're not careful. So we need to get that taken care of. The third piece, and I think this is also very important. I've heard a lot about, here in this conversation around assessment and looking at assessment, what assessment for learning should look like. And I started looking at some work a couple of years ago when I was teaching at Warner Pacific around post-plagiarism perspectives in the AI world, and I'll post into this conversation a link to that. Some of the one of the leaders in that perspective, but just recently Nancy Fry and Fisher and Fry, who are preeminent writers and researchers out of University of San Diego, just wrote a big article about that and are writing a book about this. And it's the idea of blending AI and human creation together and what that looks like, and sort of redefining what original work might be
okay.
is a kind of it sort of makes you take a step back and go,
Hmm,
this is something to think about. And how can we do that? And how can we be better learners and more effective communicators and more effective human beings with this as our partner in the process? So I'll leave you with that. This has been a great conversation, Kashan. Thank you.
thank you very much, sir. Right. So, Yeah, that's great, right? To have this particular these particular details as well, right? So I really want to know from Mr. Kessler perspective that your final thoughts from the higher education perspective, and what is the most important skill or mindset students need to develop as they are entering an AI driven world. That is really what your final thoughts are, Mr. Kessler. Want to share, please?
Thank you. um, if I had to identify one mindset that students need to develop as they enter an AI-driven world, as this the phrase is the .com of the day, I would choose one simple idea. They need to become lifelong learners who are comfortable with changes. And I say that because I don't think we can accurately predict what the workplace or even the technology, as has been mentioned, will look like. What to talk of 5 years, even after a year. So we cannot predict that. So that the AI tools that our students are learning to use today may be completely different, years from now. So some of the jobs they prepare for today may also change significantly. So from a higher education perspective, I think our responsibility is shifting. So we cannot simply prepare students for today's jobs. We have to prepare them to keep learning when the nature of these jobs are changing. And this is where I think the concept of learning how to learn becomes extremely important.
Hmm.
uh, Ask them to wait. I'm sorry about that. UNESCO's, guidance on generative AI and education takes a similar human-centered approach. It places emphasis on, not only on AI literacy, but also on critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and the ability to, continue learning and adapt as technology changes. And there is an interesting point here. For many years, education was built around the idea that students needed to acquire a body of knowledge before entering professional life. But in an AI-driven world, knowledge itself is but becoming much more accessible. What
Hmm.
becomes more valuable is the ability to acquire new knowledge, in my opinion. So, in other words, we need to move from what do you know to increasingly asking how quickly and effectively can you learn something new. And I think this changes the role of the universities, in my opinion. A university should not simply be a place where students accumulate information and obtain a degree. It should be a place where students develop the confidence and capacity to keep learning throughout their lives, and that means curiosity becomes extremely important. So it means students should be comfortable saying that I don't know this yet, but I know how to find it out. And it also means developing what I would call adaptability. When
Hmm.
a new technology appears, the question shouldn't be, do I really know how to use this? The question should be, can I learn how to use this? And I think this is a very different mindset because
Hmm.
technologies will change for sure. AI models will change, jobs will change, skills will change, the requirements of the market will change, but the ability to learn, unlearn, relearn will remain valuable. I hope
Hmm.
that has answered the question.
Yeah, it does. It is a great message as well, right? That the things are rapidly changing, right? As you mentioned that it will gonna change, but it has already changed, has started changing as well, right? Now, my question to you, Miss Samira, right? Your final thoughts or final message from an instructional perspective, what final advice you would like to give and share with teachers who are beginning to integrate AI into their classrooms, right? Over to you, Miss Amira.
So I think, you know, as with anything kind of novel, it's very easy to get swept up in wanting to try it all, try every flavor, try absolutely everything. But something that I think is very important for someone who's just beginning to bring it in is to start small. Choose one area where AI can actually genuinely have or add value, and that's the important part, is the adding of value. Any good pedagogical tool should add value. If it's not improving clarity, if it's not improving thinking, if it's not improving access, it's not adding value. And so maybe that looks like using it to help you differentiate resources for different levels. It might be helping you to generate questions very specifically. It might be helping you to provide students with feedback, or create additional opportunities for practice. Excuse me. The whole point is that you are looking at a very real problem that you are trying to solve in your classroom that you want AI to use, not the other way around. You're not shoehorning it in. And I think at the same time, protect the parts of learning that matter the most. Students still need to read. They still need to write. They still need to think and discuss and problem solve and go through that productive struggle, and have opportunities for collaboration, and developing their own ideas. And so being very intentional with how AI supports those processes, not shortcuts them, as I've said previously. And so, having a human approach to it at the very center of it, being very, very, this idea of humanization, and thinking very specifically about who you have in front of you and what do they need, and you as a teacher, what do you need to help you support them, is really important. And just touching on something that Dr. Torres said, and I think this is super, super important, we need to be teaching students how to learn to question, how to verify, how to critique, what is in front of them. And this is something that we've, pre-AI, we've been taught, through social studies, through history, is verifying sources and reliability. And that is something that is now just a new iteration of it. So, using this idea that we've always had something, we've always been striving to make life easier using new technologies. That's just it. It's just an iteration. Keeping that in mind and having, I think, a healthy amount of skepticism, not just accepting what is in front of us, and teaching students to have that too, because that is going to help them prepare for the world that they are entering. And then, most importantly, honestly, is don't underestimate the value of your own professional judgment. You've entered this profession for a reason. You have been selected to be in your schools for a reason. And it's not a light profession at all. It's, one that carries a lot of responsibility. And so just keeping sight of that as you use AI to support you. Be curious, experiment, share what works, be collaborative with others around you. If this is working for you, this is something that I love for teachers to do, is to share with others. Hey, I've used this and it has worked for me. It's tempting to, again, want to try every single topping on the ice cream, but it's not always going to be the tastiest of ice creams. So discard what doesn't work. Keep pedagogy as the main driver in the seat. Don't lose sight of what's there. And I think something else as well is to speak to that humanization point, is to go through the journey with your students as well and model. So modeling how you use AI to help them. So listen, guys, this is what I've done. I've used AI to generate ideas, but this final explanation, this belongs to me. I've created that. Again, putting things out in the open so that they are not taboo is going to reduce that temptation for students to use it maybe in ways that are slightly more nefarious than we want them to, and to keep it more healthy, and sort of help us to avoid policing it. So that would be my final thought on that, is just don't underestimate who you are as a teacher. Use it and keep the human at the heart of using this wonderful, scary, nebulous thing that we're all using.
Thank you very much, Ms. Amira. Actually, what your message remind us that that effective AI integration actually starts with a strong pedagogy, right? That's what you mentioned, right? And where technology supports teachers and enhances meaningful learning experiences as well, right? So thank you very much for this. Now, I really want to ask Dr. Joseph for his final thoughts, that what is one important message you would like schools to consider when adapting artificial intelligence, right? So, Mr. Dr. Joseph.
Yeah, thank you, Kashan. I think like I said earlier, I think I resonate with what has been said across by all of the fellow panelists here. There are a lot of considerations to be thought of. I think one thing I would say is from my short experience, what I've come across is the OECD has put out a framework, and that
Mhm.
framework is quite helpful. It talks about four domains, and I think everything that we discussed here falls into one of those four domains. I think that's a good guide to be put in place while for educational institutions while thinking about the implementation of AI. To summarize, I would say, I mean, use that framework, perhaps, or have a think about it, have a review, or just have a look. But fundamentally, I think that there's a bigger question to be asked, like what are we trying to define? Everything that Mr. Said Kaiser said, I resonates with me. Lifelong learning and learning to learn has to be thought through. For teachers, I think it's what Ms. Amira talked about, where in the classroom, like being in the classroom, what are the things that's going to help me to become more effective with the students, and how are students going to learn with this tool, right? And I think last but not the least, it comes down to the policy. But I struggle with that a little bit just because the technology is changing so fast and the rapid advancements. I mean, when I say advancements, it's not like going from like one version to another version. It's like a exponential advancement like I've never seen before with AI, right? And the merging of that with the physical entity of what we didn't touch upon in this topic at all, robotics. And that's coming through. I mean, that's an increase. So there's multiple angles to this, right? So creating a policy that can sustain for a long time, or just put us in that, it's going to be very difficult. So I think everything has to be reviewed continuously. And to me, as a technologist, I would say not to discount the factor of security. So I would say please take that also into one of the big considerations as you think through this.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. So, my final thoughts are actually that AI should not replace, right, teacher or students' own thinking, right? Instead, we should use it as a tool to help students explore ideas, solve problems, be creative, and learn more effectively as well. So, as the topic of this panel is that whether AI is an ally or enemy. So, my take is that I don't see AI as simply an ally or an enemy. It depends on how we use it with a strong teaching, human judgment, and ethical responsibility as well, right? So that's what my take is, right? And I really would like to sincerely thank all of our panelists for sharing your expertise, their expertise, experiences, and valuable perspective with us today, right? We do have one question from Ms. Ariba, right? And thank you, Dr. Andrew, that he has already answered that question in the thing. Yeah, I just want to just read that question. That do you think that AI only creates an illusion of understanding? Students may produce a great explanatory answer using AI tools, but they might not actually absorb the concept, right? Dr. Andrew already answered this question, so thank you very much, Dr. Andrew, right? And again, thank you to everyone who joined us today and to our panelists as well for such an insightful discussion. Your perspective have actually given us a lot of reflect as an AI continues to shape education, right? So we truly appreciate your time and participation. And I really want to wish all of you have a very wonderful evening, everyone, as well. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Goodbye.
all.
Thank you,
Thank you very
Kashan.
much.
Congratulations, Kashan, for getting this step done on that degree. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Yes.
Have a
Well
good